Hi, this video is going to explain Assessment Task 1, which is looking at senior secondary pedagogy and curriculum. So the aim of this assessment is for you to become more familiar with the theory and content surrounding VCE within your specialisation. You're going to explore the curriculum and the pedagogy behind VCE Units 1 and 2 and the associated VCEAA documents. Just looking at one of your specialisations in this assignment, you're going to create a report that is going to be split into two sections. The first section here is addressing the transition of students from the senior secondary to the VCE context. Okay, and then the second one will be looking at the curriculum surrounding your specialisation. So in the first section, we're drawing on pedagogy, and the second one, we're seeing it applied in the curriculum. So just looking at the first section, you're going to look at, as I said before, the transition from the students in the senior secondary school to the VCE, looking at the pedagogies surrounding both, and drawing on knowledge relating to the cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development of these students to explore the differences and similarities in catering for various activities. So basically, you're thinking about the student's transition from the middle years to the VCE and thinking about, what are the cognitive changes students undergo? What is the emotional development they go through in that period? Are there any social changes and social developments, and obviously physical ones as well? In your discussion, you need to unpack how the government documents apply to the VCE student and how, or compare them against how they apply to the middle year student. So you could be looking at the similarities and differences in terms of the VCE and middle years and how they apply to your classroom. So the government policy documents that we're referring to is the pedagogical model. So here we've got the pedagogical model, which you're familiar with, and the high impact teaching strategies. We've got Amplify. These are the ones that you will be referring to in terms of government policy. Picking out high impact teaching strategies for an example. If I'm looking at setting goals, does that look different for a middle years classroom or a senior secondary classroom than it does to a VCE classroom, for an example? So you can pick whichever ones you'd like to focus on. Obviously, you don't have time to write about them all. Pick a few choice ones. So the curriculum documents that we're referring to, these ones here, are the high impact teaching strategies and the pedagogical model. The other documents you're going to unpack, which are more focused on the curriculum, would be the VCEAA study design in your specialisation area. So just into Google, type in VCEAA study design and your specialisation, for an example, maths, and it should come up. And just make sure that you are using the correct year that the study design has been designed for. The bulletin here is also another good place for information. And this one is fantastic, the advice for teachers. Now you should be reading that as well as the first one in together. The assessor's annual report and the VCE administrative handbook. All of these are the VCEAA curriculum documents that you'll be referring to. So in your discussion in the first part, it's really important to also consider the inquiry from the perspective of your specialisation. So consider the similarities and differences of your specialisation in in senior secondary compared to the VCE. For an example, you may wish to consider the comparison of the curriculum and link this with the cognitive load of the students. Or you might have a subject that is heavily practical based in senior secondary, but in VCE, there's much more focus on theory. So what does this mean for your students in Year 11? whatever you decide to discuss in a report, you need to consider the cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development of your students. Your discussion also needs to be substantiated with academic referencing. In the second part, which is going to follow on from your discussion in the first part, and one thing I forgot to mention is we want you to write in clear paragraphs. Don't use dot points or subheaders. In the second part, however, you may, because we want you to look at the key knowledge in your specialisation and really think about, what does that look like in the classroom? How am I going to teach that in the classroom? We've given you an example on Collaborate that you can use as a guide. If I go into it now, we've got the heading of the subject. We've got the unit that we're addressing, the area of study. So this is all cut and paste from the study design, and so is this. And you've got key knowledge and key skills. Now we want you to look at 2 key knowledge for Unit 2 and 2 key knowledge for Unit 1 and any associated key skill. Now this is going to be slightly different for each specialisation. So in general, 1 key knowledge and a couple of key skills, or 1 key skill, thinking about which ones connect with other ones. Okay, so this one here, we've taken this key knowledge dot point straight from the biology study design. And if I go into this biology study design, okay, and I scroll down, outcome 1, we've got this one here. Okay, you don't have to choose the first one. You can choose any of them. We've just chosen the first one. So there it is there. Now for biology and all the sciences, we've got key skills that we need to address as well, as will you in your specialisation. You need to choose whichever ones are associated with that particular key knowledge. And then underneath, we've got how we would teach the outcome. So we've actually sourced out activities, learning experiences, thinking about how we would cover that particular key knowledge dot point. And underneath it, there is a substantiation of explanation of why, how, what are the students doing, but why have I actually chosen that? So going back to the assignment, the how you are expanding and teaching the curriculum is really important. So really thinking about what type of tasks are you choosing that are really specific to a Year 11 classroom, a VCE classroom, okay? The pedagogies that we've discussed in senior secondary don't necessarily apply to the VCE context in some cases because of that high content delivery of the study design. So what does that mean for your classroom and for your engaging resources or activities? We are really looking in this second section for connections that you're making between what you've written in the first part here, what you've written in the theory, and how it actually applies to your practice. So whatever you have addressed in this first section here, what did you find important? What did you consider, important for the development or the transition for the students? We want to see this unpacked here. We want to see you considering the VCE student in terms of what you've written in the first place. So are these considerations reflected in the activities that you've chosen in this part of the assignment? So when you're submitting, make sure that you've got your discussion of the transition of the students from senior secondary to VCE, and then in the same document, how you would teach the outcomes in Unit 1 and Unit 2. So you're choosing 2 key knowledge dot points for Unit 1 and 2 key knowledge dot points from Unit 2 within the same outcome.